Welcome back to the Cal Park Bros podcast. Jason and I are fresh off dissecting John Gruden's demise at the hands of his own hand, his email hand specifically. But I don't really want to call that cancel culture.
Well, you don't believe in cancel culture, so
I selectively don't believe in cancel culture.
in other words, you think it is real. So
It's real when people want it to be real. It's real when people need it to be.
let's kick off segment 2, but I want you to explain more about that when we get into it.
So we decided that we should probably let things cool off for a bit because shit was definitely hot in these streets when it came to Dave Chappelle when the closer came out. When did you watch that special, Jason?
So it was the day before or the weekend before we had our last production meeting because we were considering talking about it last week for episode 26. So I think I watched it either that Saturday or Sunday or whatever it was. So yeah, I think that might have been around the crux of when stuff started kicking off for him because I know that got released on October the 5th. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I watched it around the same time frame. So with this being 2 weeks and change after that, because I truly hate when media comes out like a new movie, a new show, a new video game, new music, and people just, here's how you should feel about it. I'm like, I'm a family man. I still haven't even listened to the shit yet. Like, it's overwhelming how many people are pissed off about this special. And also, conversely, how many people are like, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread? Like, I don't think the closer really is going to change any minds. I really don't.
So Terrence, explain why people are so mad.
Basically because they consider Dave Chappelle to be especially transphobic on this one. But this has been an ongoing issue for Dave Chappelle anyway, like with that first Netflix special. So pretty much since the beginning of his Netflix content, he's been talking about this one interaction, or interactions with transgenders in the past. The closer kind of tries to put all of that consternation and all of that conflict and all of that acrimony and wrap it in a pretty little bow. And all of that is really to say Dave Chappelle is not going to change his fucking mind about how he feels. He's not going to change the way, for the most part, that he's talking about any groups within the LGBTQ community. And, many that would consider themselves to be a part of that community or consider themselves to be an ally of that community, interestingly enough, feel like it's their cross to bear to take up arms anytime this dude shows up on Netflix or SNL or whatever the fuck. So it seems like that's why I said that cancel culture is not real, because first off, I refuse to believe that Dave Chappelle's The Closer was remotely close to being pulled. This article on Complex, by the way. National Black Justice Coalition urged Netflix to remove Dave Chappelle's The Closer special. Immediately after its release on Tuesday, The Closer began receiving backlash over a series of anti-trans comments for the 48-year-old comedian. At one point during the gig, Chappelle declares himself a TERF, that stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist, and expresses support for J.K. Rowling, the Harry Potter author who claimed trans women pose a threat to those who were assigned female at birth. It is deeply disappointed that Netflix allowed Dave Chappelle's lazy and hostile transphobia and homophobia to air on its platform, says NBJC Executive Director David Johns said in a statement to Deadline. With 2021 on track to be the deadliest year on record for transgender people in the United States, the majority of whom are Black transgender people, Netflix should know better. Perpetuating transphobia perpetuates violence. Netflix should immediately pull the closer from its platform and directly apologize to the transgender community. Jason, what's your thoughts on that on the statement from David Johns?
That Netflix should apologize?
No, that they should pull the special and directly apologize to the transgender community.
So first off, before going to that, so you mentioned your opinion about cancel culture a couple of times, and I say that it's not about the result. Like because you mentioned this, maybe may or may not be likely that Netflix will actually pull the special, but it's more about the attempt, the people taking action to make it happen or requesting that it happen. That's what's really more about. Now, obviously, if Netflix did it, then that is what it is. But I don't think it's necessarily about the result of that happening. It's more about the action, people trying to. That's what cancel culture is. That's what they're referring to. So that definitely, obviously, with the story we're talking about, probably for the first two and this one, shows you that cancel culture is real. To answer your question, what do I think about that? I totally understand it. Now, I'm not saying I agree or disagree when it comes to whatever Dave Chappelle said or how people should feel about it, because who am I to say that, hey, you shouldn't be offended by what he said? Well, that's not for me to say. But I understand it completely. So by all those things all together, I can see why somebody's going to get offended by that. I can't say that they should or shouldn't. Now,
yeah, I'm not interested in talking about whether or not they're offended or not, because you're right. It's not for us to say, because we are not, that's not who we are. Well, Jason, what I'm asking you though is, do you think that this special was inciting violence?
And I was getting there before you cut me off, but don't do that again.
I might have to.
Hey. Inciting violence, I have to say that that's a possibility. I mean, we've seen in this country that, strangely enough, there are people who are willing to assault people in the LGBTQ community. Now, I can't say what's going to incite or not incite somebody, because who says that it won't or hasn't already? We don't know. I mean, hell, we've just seen over the last 4 years or so, the words of one individual can incite people to take action, violent action, threatening action. We just talked about the January 6th insurrection not that long ago, right? And we all pretty much believe that was.
Are we comparing Dave Chappelle to Trump?
No, I'm comparing.
Is that what we're trying to do, Jason?
I'm comparing the action that one person's words can incite violence. Do we not agree on that? It's a yes or no, bro.
I mean, my hesitation should tell you that I'm not. That might be a bridge too far.
How is it a bridge too far?
I mean, because I refuse to let people off the hook. If your dumb ass is at the Capitol for that, then there has to be some personal accountability there.
I agree, but it's not. But okay, I agree with you. There has to be personal accountability on the person taking the violent action, but that doesn't mean they can't take someone else saying certain words and use them for their own malicious intent. Even if the person who said those words wasn't trying to incite somebody to do something, right? It doesn't matter. Their words still incited. So there's things we could say that might incite somebody to do.
That sounds like a fucking.
It's not a cop out. It's not a cop out, because what did I just say? There is personal accountability, but the fact of the matter is, like I said the other day, a message can be taken differently by who's saying it, right? Just like a message can be taken differently depending on who's hearing it. Correct? Would you not agree with that? Yeah.
If you're committed to interpreting this as it's violence against trans people, then I guess there's nothing I can do to convince you otherwise. That being said, we both watched the same special. I've heard from people that are transgender. I heard from people that are consider themselves to be transgender allies. I mean, I'm not even getting into the J.K. Rowling thing, because first off, I think one thing that Chappelle fucked up on is that he was confusing gender and sex anyway. So, I've heard some of our contemporaries do the same thing. But, I feel like we're in a space where I'm not going to outright say, hey, after 60 plus minutes, my mind's been changed. Now he's transphobic.
Well, I'm not saying that he is or isn't transphobic. I was just answering your question when it comes to I think what he said could incite violence. And the answer is yes. Because that anger is already there in certain people. They could be incited to do it anyway, but they might have heard Chappelle's words or anybody else's.
Did you think Dave Chappelle was angry during the closer? Is my question.
No, well, that's not what you asked me.
Right, but I asked, you followed up, I followed up, and now I'm just like, okay, it just seems like we're trying to play hot potato with this residual anger. The trans community is unhappy. Long-standing supporters of Dave Chappelle, they're unhappy, which kind of takes me back to my main point. Nobody's fucking mind's been changed. Like, we're what? 4 or 5 Netflix specials in?
6.
Yeah, thank you. I don't feel like anybody's mind was changed because of the closer. I think it just made people say, where here, it just reaffirmed, here's where people already felt strongly about where they were. Nobody was moved. It's like a, hey, after this 2-day long Facebook Gaza Strip argument, now I see things differently from a completely different perspective. No, you don't. You don't.
I don't know. Channing Tatum felt a different kind of way about Chappelle after this. So apparently he was very moved by something Dave said in the speech or whatnot prior, like in 2019. And all of a sudden he thinks Chappelle's very dangerous when it comes to just talking about him. So apparently Channing Tatum was very moved a couple of times by Dave Chappelle, Terrence. So you're wrong. Channing Tatum.
Okay. Well,
it was Magic Mike.
You're ridiculous. Yeah. When you're talking about cancel culture, I feel like I'm looking at the Chappelle situation. I'm like, literally, you want to talk about a guy with power? And because we're talking about a black man with power, of course, I think there's part of us that identifies with this. Calling your own shot. Basically getting people to say, listen, until Viacom comes correct, stop watching my shit. Dave Chappelle's been more successful in trying to get his own shit canceled than his detractors have been at this point.
Well, of course. And it goes back to what I was saying. They may not be successful with getting Netflix to pull the special. They probably won't be. Doesn't mean they should or shouldn't try. But yeah, you're correct. Dave Chappelle is making Netflix, has been making Netflix money, right? So now that relationship may be over at the moment based off his 6 specials and that's it. I don't know. But do I see Netflix caving to this? I do not. Could they still do so? Yeah, they might. And not saying they're going to decide based off of this, but apparently tomorrow there is a walkout / PSA set up for basically people who want to push for Netflix to pull the special, and this is going to include employees of Netflix. So some celebrities are going to be involved as well, including people who have their content on Netflix also as well. So including the executive producer of Dear White People. So there's going to be attempts. Like I said, this is the attempt. This is the cancel culture in action right here. This is their attempt. Whether or not they're successful, we'll see. I know Netflix had a thing where they suspended an employee, a trans employee, who came out with her opinion on social media about it, and they suspended her, which supposedly it was for something else, but kind of convenient on the timing. She's not suspended anymore, but yeah, I find that very interesting that they have that internal struggle. When I say internal, Netflix, when your own employees are saying, "Hey, we want you to take this, off the programming," because if anything would cause the company to take it down, it'd be the fact that your own employers are requesting you to do it. And again, the company may or may not.
What?
The company may or may not listen to that. It's up to them. But if they're going to do it, it'll be because of that. So,
right, but we're talking about. I mean, the power dynamic does not line up with that, though, Jason. I mean, there's a reason that despite the lobbying of many NFL players and even a few NFL coaches, it's really hard for Eric Bieniemy to get a fucking head coaching job. Like, the power dynamic says, no, it's not his time. It may never be his time, and it may have nothing to do with him. You know, except for the color of his skin. So that is why we talk about the employer-employee dynamic. Just because the employee feels that they're standing on the side of right doesn't mean the employer is going to acquiesce. Because the employer is like, last time I checked, I'm the motherfucker writing a check for these lights being on.
that's a good point. But it also depends on how many employees are we talking about. You know, I mean, yeah, one employee should matter. I agree. But
all employees matter.
That's racist. But yeah, one employee should matter. But yeah, I agree with you. That one employee may not be enough to turn the wheel. But if half your employees, for example, or more, if they're trying to turn the wheel, then that might be something Netflix has to at least listen to, consider, take some type of action. Even if it's not pulling the show, what can you do for me? Like a negotiation in a way.
I don't feel like the parties that be or the aggrieved party allegedly has enough critical mass to even make it a negotiation. Like you're talking about this like this is like a legit boycott.
Well, what's a legit boycott in your mind?
I mean, when I hear boycott, I think about Montgomery bus boycott, where there was a literal organization or organizations working together to attack this racist infrastructure head
I
on.
believe you had that in this case too. To a degree.
I feel like you're talking apples and aircraft carriers right now because one person pissed off at Netflix ain't it.
Dude, okay, I really start to question, do you listen to what I said? I mentioned definitely more than one person being a part of this boycott. I didn't say one person.
I'm saying it's not even a boycott.
I didn't call it that either. But what I'm saying is, it's not just one person a part of this. It's not really one person doing this. It's several people. So I'm not trying to put it akin to, that what went down in Alabama years ago during the civil rights movement. I'm not doing that. You brought that up. But what I'm saying is we don't know what Netflix is going to do. But this is not just about one person, clearly. And that's why there's going to be several people doing this action tomorrow. I'm sure it'll be covered by some sort of news outlet. I'm not saying.
So what is this action again? Because again, keep in mind, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Can you elaborate?
Let me go to the article. But yes,
I don't want to undermine it unintentionally.
Well,
it's just I'm not getting the vision for this.
Are you ever? Do you ever get my vision, Terrence?
I mean, if people want something to change, they kind of have to specify what they want changed.
Okay, so
and pulling this special ain't it, because that's not happening.
Okay, maybe we will, maybe we won't, whatever. But again, it's not about the action; it's about the attempt. That's what cancel culture is.
Nah, I feel like it is. It's about the result. If you can't come away with some, here is one thing that we got out of this conflict, then you're wasting your fucking time. I don't care who it is. I don't care if we're talking about transgender people feeling oppressed. I don't care if we're talking about women feeling oppressed. I don't care about we're talking about black people. You have a group it feels like they have a they haven't been treated right, they typically say, "Hey, we need this," and requesting the special to be removed seems somewhat performative to me. One, it's not going to happen.
Maybe.
Two, is that objectively going to make any transgender person's life better because that special doesn't exist? Knowing that, and I'm not even going to question the NBJC's heads stats about how many transgender um, citizens were killed. I know that's a thing. I'm not gonna besmirch that. I'm not going to deny that. I know that's real. What does taking the special away do to address that?
Is that for either one of us to say?
I'm not saying, I'm asking the question.
I can't
What
I
does
can't answer that because it doesn't affect me. But that doesn't affect me.
right? But it affects people in our communities, so we should be asking that
Yeah,
question.
well, actually, well, yeah, but asking it on this show doesn't make a difference. We need to ask it to the people we're talking about, people who are trans, people who are LGBTQ. Because I can't answer that. You can't either. So asking it really makes no point. I mean, asking it.
I think
Well,
it does
we
because
can ask it
ultimately,
as a way to for people to pose it to those people they know. But you posing it to me and vice versa doesn't do any good because I can't answer it and neither can you.
right? Because what I'm saying is, all I can do is I can share my opinions, and I wasn't trying to say that, oh, it's only this one random asshole at Netflix. No, I understand there's a bevy of people that are displeased, but I still don't feel like I get what the hell's going on tomorrow.
Okay. So,
So if you could get to
well,
that,
if you stop cutting me off like you always do, but don't let me do it to you, otherwise you'll bring it up and get mad. But Netflix, this is a Fox Business news article from 12 hours ago, so forth. Netflix employees walking out over Dave Chappelle's The Closer to be supported by celebrities in a public service announcement. Many celebrities, including some who have worked with Netflix in the past, will reportedly appear in a PSA at the employee walkout on Wednesday in protest of Dave Chappelle's controversial stand-up special, The Closer. Employees and activists had previously planned a walkout on October the 20th, dubbed "Stand Up in Solidarity Protest." They aim to present co-CEO Ted Sarandos with a list of firm asks, that's quoted in here, after he previously defended both Chappelle and the platform for continuing to play home to The Closer. Variety reports that LGBTQ celebrities such as Angelica Ross, Jonathan Van Ness, Jamila Jamil, Eureka O'Hara, Colton Hayes, Sarah Ramirez, T.S. Madison, Arlene J., Alexander Billings, and Joey Soloway will appear in the PSA showing solidarity with the employees who walk out, as well as calling for better, more responsible representation of the LGBTQ plus community on the platform. There's obviously more stuff in the article there, but that's the basic gist of what I was referring to.
okay. Well, at least I can do is actually keep an eye out for tomorrow. So
I I would have to imagine it's going to be covered by somebody based on all the stuff that happened up till now. So probably keep, if nothing else, keep your eye on Fox News, CNN, whatever, and there you go. So again, it doesn't say how many employees are going to be involved in this. I've been scrolling through. I haven't seen it. Um, I mentioned before the executive producer for Your White People, Jacqueline Moore. Um, but um, but yeah, so yeah, people are involved in this. Again, it goes beyond just one person. May or may not shift anything when it comes to Netflix. Is what it is. Out of my hands. Had nothing to do with it. It's up to Netflix, and we'll go from there. Um, what will it do by getting the special pulled? Again, I can't say, but I'd have to imagine it would feel like some sort of a victory, be it big or small, to people in the LGBT community if a large company like Netflix, who has already said they're not removing it, all of a sudden perhaps if they might change their mind. Or if they make some type of other concession, which I don't know what that could be. I don't know if they will, whatever. but I have to imagine they will feel like some sort of victory if that happens. So that may answer your question. I don't know if that's actually accurate. I'd believe it. I believe it if somebody told me it would be. So there you go.
Okay, last question, and then I'll leave you alone, at least for segment 2. Do you feel like the Me Too movement changed anything in Hollywood?
Again, I can't answer that either because I'm not part of Hollywood. That I know it's kind of me deflecting and me giving a, but it's
It kind of
it's true.
is, but I
But
still
it's
love you.
true because I don't know, because I could say yes from my perspective, but if women in the industry say no, it hasn't changed anything, whose opinion about that's going to matter more, mine or theirs? Because I
Okay.
might not be able to see any change at all. I could say I don't see anything, but they might, either good or bad. So
Yeah, I'm just curious because it seems like, and I'm not trying to undermine any movements, but it seems like what?
I didn't say a word, bro.
You did that little head turn. Anyways, yeah, I think I will be paying attention tomorrow because I'm curious to see what they're requesting.
Well, I have to imagine their firm ask would be something they mentioned already about them pulling the special. I'm sure they're going to ask that. I don't know why you wouldn't. Um,
I mean, you can ask, just expect for it to be declined
and that's what I
outright.
was telling you before. You can always ask and see what happens. Worst case scenario, they don't pull it, and you're in the same spot they are now. But but yeah, I'm sure that's one of their firm asks. I can't imagine what else they would ask besides that. But I mean,
How you gonna pull the closer and keep the rest of the shit up? Maybe that's what I really want to
maybe
know.
that's something else as well. So
Like if you truly have a problem with Dave Chappelle, how you gonna get rid of the closer and keep the rest of this shit up?
maybe that's part of their firm asks. Yeah, as I were talking about it more, I have to imagine that some live camera crew is going to be there to film some portion of that. So maybe that'll come. Maybe that'll come out when at the walkout tomorrow. Because I agree with you, I wouldn't mind knowing what the rest of their asks are, but beyond just pulling the closer. And I agree with you as well. If your problem is with Dave Chappelle, then what they may ask for to pull all 6 of them. If the problem was just with the closer, then it'll just be the closer. But I agree with you. That's a good point. It may not stop with just the
I mean,
one.
a lot of this originated with the earlier specials. This didn't just happen October 5th.
Well, true, but I guess that again depends on what level we're talking about festivity or people at. Was it really just with the closer and specific stuff he said? Could be. I don't know. But again, and I feel I don't know if I feel bad about the fact that I don't know what the issue specifically was about this one as opposed to ones before that triggered everybody. But like I said, maybe that's a question to be asked of somebody in that community.
Yeah,
So
I
people,
think,
I challenge you, anybody listening, if you're curious about that same thing, and if you know somebody in that community, ask respectfully. Ask.
or just listen, because chances are they already have an opinion
Yeah,
about it.
to ask the question, sit back and listen. There you go. Agreed.
Yeah, because we're not good. We're not big on making somebody doing the same work twice.
You sure?
I'm not. Well, you for the show. Yeah, you can keep doing that. But
So you're
no.
admitting that I do most of the work here?
I mean, you definitely the workhorse of the Cal Pride Bros podcast. Objectively, I could say that.
Okay, so ipso facto, I'm the captain.
Or co-captain. So,
It- yeah.
all right. That concludes our segment on Dave Chappelle and this standoff between whether or not he's a transphobe or not. I truly feel like nobody's fucking mind has been changed in six specials on this guy. So, coming up next, we're gonna be talking about TikTok fuckery. Cannot believe we have to actually cover this on the show. Coming up next on Cal Park Bros.